There was something unmistakably charged in the air over downtown Toronto on Thursday night. The sky hung low, the city buzzed harder than usual, and the Rogers Centre gleamed beneath floodlights like it was preparing for a championship match. But this wasn't a sports event. It was arguably more contentious. Kendrick Lamar, the Pulitzer-winning Compton rapper, was performing in Drake's hometown, Toronto, on the first of 2 nights at the stadium. And he wasn't coming quietly. Welcome to celebrity rap life, where the red carpets never roll up and the spotlight never fades. The rewards are legendary. Because in celebrity rap life, every downfall can become a comeback, and every headline tells a deeper story. Hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a second of what's coming next. The Grand National Tour had already made waves across North America, but this was the moment many had been waiting for. Lamar, whose pen had recently ignited the most volatile hip-hop feud in a decade, was about to touch Canadian soil, on Drake's turf, after dismantling him bar for bar with Not Like Us, a diss track that had become more than just a song. It was a cultural earthquake. There was a hum of uncertainty rippling through the city all week. On local radio stations, at barbershops, in DMs and Twitter threads, the same question circled. Was Kendrick going to stoke the flames of the feud? Would he escalate it, double down, or possibly try to take a final victory lap? Toronto didn't just want a show. It wanted a moment. And Kendrick gave them one, just not in the way they expected. Fans began assembling around the Rogers Centre by early afternoon, lining up in clusters for merchandise, drinks, and a shot at getting as close to the stage as possible. The crowd was diverse and energized. Gen Z teens wearing GNX tour hoodies next to 30-somethings in vintage Top Dog Entertainment tees. Some had flown in from Calgary, Vancouver, and even New York to be part of what they suspected would be a historic night. Inside, the Rogers Centre was transformed into something more theatrical than a stadium concert. Giant video screens loomed overhead, and minimalist lighting occasionally sliced through fog machines like a Blade Runner fever dream. Siza took the stage first, shimmering in a flowing iridescent dress as she opened her set with Kill Bill and Blind. Her voice floated effortlessly across the dome, soothing but commanding. Toronto cheered, swayed, and sang along. SCA's portion of the night was anything but a warm-up act. It was a full-fledged, masterfully curated performance in its own right. She pulled from her SOS Deluxe, Lana Edition, and even offered surprise renditions of F2F and Notice Me, backed by a glowing backdrop that transitioned between underwater cityscapes and galactic dreamscapes. During Low, the energy turned from ethereal to electric, and by the time she closed with Good Days, the crowd was primed, emotionally moved and visibly amped. Then came Kendrick. Without announcement, the lights cut. A single beam of white illuminated the center of the stage. And then, boom, Family Ties erupted. The roar from the crowd was instantaneous. Kendrick emerged not with fanfare, but with precision, clad in black, flanked by dancers and screens flashing street surveillance aesthetics, immediately establishing the narrative tone he's perfected over the last decade. Hyper-aware, urgent, poetic. DNA, Element, and Mad City followed in quick succession, all delivered with razor-sharp energy. Kendrick didn't need gimmicks or speeches. He commanded attention through intensity alone. His voice was unwavering. His stage presence is magnetic. There was a certain defiance in how he moved. A quiet war waged behind every bar he spit. Even though he hadn't said a word about Drake, the subtext of every moment was thunderous. The crowd felt it too. Everyone did. You could see it in the way people locked eyes when Kendrick launched into Euphoria, a track that had originally caught fire as a lyrical dissection of Drake's persona. But Kendrick didn't linger on the beef. Instead, he used the stage as a platform for something broader: empathy, survival, resilience. During Mother I Sober, the visuals softened. An altar appeared behind him. Clips of families in different generations danced across the screens. The arena dimmed to near silence. A sea of phone lights flickered like candles. It wasn't just a concert anymore. It was performance art steeped in reflection. But for all the restraint, Kendrick wasn't about to ignore the elephant in the room forever. As the night neared its final act, a pulse began to rise among the fans. People started whispering, anticipating. And then came the beat, the unmistakable mustard-drenched bounce of Not Like Us. The crowd exploded. Phones shot into the air. Every lyric hit like a slap. The drums, the snarling delivery, the tongue-in-cheek taunts, it was a moment both raw and rehearsed. Kendrick wasn't looking for validation. He had already won. He was soaking in the aftermath. As the final chorus faded out, he didn't rush off. Instead, he stood alone beneath a single spotlight, the rest of the stage shrouded in darkness. The crowd began chanting, "One more time! One more time!" Kendrick just stared, a sly smirk crossing his lips. For 2 full minutes, he said nothing. He just let the noise swell and bounce around the cavernous arena like a wave crashing over a victory parade. But he didn't perform it again. Instead, he let the silence speak. Toronto had hoped for fire. Kendrick gave them ice. Backstage, there had been rumors of surprise guests, maybe even Drake himself. Fans like Peter Jean had shown up in full OVO gear, rocking a shirt with the owl logo fused with the Canadian flag. "I wanted them to squash it," he said outside the gates. Even if it was just a freestyle battle, a handshake, something symbolic. Others came just to soak in the tension. Brendan Wong, who flew in from Calgary, said, "It's not even about who's better. It's about being there when something happens. This feels like history." Then there were those like Anthony Tran and Krisha May, who waited in line for nearly 3 hours just to grab matching Siza shirts. They didn't care much for the feud, but the underlying energy had still pulled them in. "You can't ignore it," Tran admitted. "Even if you're here for the music, the beef is part of the story." And outside the venue, the lines between fandom and identity were on full display. One man, calling himself Julian, showed up dressed head to toe in OVO-branded clothing, even without a concert ticket. "I'm here to show who runs this city," he said proudly. October 6th, born and raised in the 6. But even with OVO loyalists nearby, there was no disruption, no protest, no counterstatement strong enough to derail Kendrick's focus. Toronto police maintained a noticeable presence outside the venue, but the crowd was largely peaceful, charged, but respectful. Interestingly, plans for an OVO fan-led demonstration inside the stadium never materialized. An Instagram account that had hyped the event for weeks suddenly announced its cancellation, citing logistical constraints. It was a telling absence. Drake himself, who had teased a live-stream event with streamer Kai Cenat for the same evening, quietly postponed the appearance. No comment. No statement. Just silence. It was almost as if everyone knew. Toronto, usually bold and brash in its hometown pride, seemed to accept the moment for what it was. Kendrick had come to their city. He had played their biggest stadium, one that Drake himself had never headlined during a solo tour. And he did it on his terms. There was no olive branch. But there was also no mockery. After performing TV Off, Kendrick brought Siza back out. Together, they gave the crowd a rousing version of All the Stars, with visual motifs echoing cosmic ascension and liberation. It was one of the few moments when the crowd seemed to completely let go of the drama, arms raised, voices harmonizing in unison. The energy in the stadium was cathartic. And that's what separated this night from just another stop on a tour. Kendrick knew the stakes. He knew the narratives circling. But he refused to be boxed into them. He turned potential chaos into art. He made the crowd confront their own expectations. And he did it without compromise. By the time the encore rolled around, all right with DJ Mustard reappearing to hype the crowd, it was clear that the Toronto show wasn't a battlefield. It was a coronation. Not one defined by diss tracks, but by performance, presence, and unshakable command. The lights eventually dimmed. The crowd began to file out, buzzing. Some were elated. Others were contemplative. A few die-hard Drake fans muttered about what could have been. But everyone knew they'd seen something singular. Outside, the CN Tower loomed in the background, glowing softly in the humid night sky. One fan, still catching his breath, turned to his friend and said, he didn't even have to say Drake's name. That's how you know he's in control. Kendrick Lamar didn't need to win over Toronto. He just had to show up and be undeniable. And on this night, he was. This story is far from over, and the truth is still unfolding. I want to hear what you think. Drop your take in the comments. And if you don't want to miss the next twist, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a second of what's coming next.